Thales is generally regarded as the first of the ancient Greek Presocratic philosophers. Many say Thales was the earliest philosopher in the Western world. Thales addressed the problem of the one and the many, and another related metaphysical problem, the problem of change. The problem of change is the problem of how do things become? How does change occur? If there is some underlying factor, some underlying principle to our understanding of reality, once we grasp that, how does one give an account of the becoming of things? How does one give an account of change? Let's first talk about how Thales answered the problem of the one and the many. Thales proposed that the one that underlies the many is a single material substance. Water. Water is the one that underlies the many. This view makes Thales a material monist. He has the view that reality can ultimately be understood in terms of a single substance, and that substance is a material substance. Water underlies everything. Water underlies everything. Why did Thales believe this? Well, for many reasons. Here are a few. Number one, all living things require water. Living thing doesn't get water, doesn't really matter what living thing it is, and it does not remain a living thing much longer. Even certain living things like cacti and camels that can do without water for an unusually long period of time. They reach a limit where if they don't have water, they do not remain living things. Here is another reason. It seems that land arises out of water. Water surrounds all land, so water seems to be the origin of land. Here's another reason for which Thales found water to be compelling. Water is an intermediate state between solids and gases. Freeze water, it becomes solid ice. Heat water, and it becomes gaseous steam. Furthermore, evaporating water leaves behind solid traces, suggesting a connection between the liquid and the solid. And after water has evaporated, it seems to return to Earth as rain. Earth seems to turn to water as water comes up from a spring. And water seems to become Earth at a delta. What is Thales doing here? One way to appreciate what he's doing is to notice this. He's simply looking around at the world, at nature, and seeking to identify that which is most important. It sounds strange to us for anyone to say that water is everything. But we've got to appreciate that back in Thales' day, there was no developed science. There was no school he could go to ask a question. There was no library. There was no internet. There was no way of knowing things except starting with what one can observe. The question that Thales asked and his observations worked hand in hand. The seeking to understand the natural world in terms of a smaller number of principles is essentially the quest for a cognitive economy. The world is complicated. We want to understand it. Let's work with what we can see and try and give the simplest, tightest explanations that we can. Even though the Presocratics are pre-scientific, it's important to keep in mind their questions and their methods. Their questions and their methods ultimately contributed to the formation of science. How did Thales address the problem of change? His answer to this question is less clear. And in discussing it, we need to keep in mind that we have very little record of the developed thinking of Thales. He is known to have said on the changing of particulars this: all things are full of gods. Now, what exactly did he mean by this? On the one hand, his addressing of change does refer to observations that he made in the natural world, such as this: magnetic rocks can move iron. That is, a rock has a certain principle, and that allows it to have an effect on another object. A particular has an effect on another particular. Now, did he literally mean that all things are possessed by spirits in the way that an animist might believe that, for example, a river is possessed by a river spirit, or a tree is possessed by a tree spirit? That type of thinking seems a bit at odds with a naturalistic approach to reality. Furthermore, it doesn't seem consistent with the idea that water is the fundamental substance through which all can be understood. So how do we handle Thales's claim that change, becoming, is a product of all things being full of gods? One proposal, and I make this proposal with the awareness that there may well be others, is this: perhaps we can understand it as a metaphor. A metaphor for what? Perhaps a metaphor for all material things having a natural, active aspect to them. That is, material things are not only affected by other material things, but they also affect. They do, and they receive. And not necessarily in that order. They may receive and do. But part of what it means to be part of what it means to be a material thing is to have some type of ability to affect other things, to make things happen. I don't think it's possible to truly know Thales' full account of the origin of change. There's simply not enough of his thinking recorded. But at least the notion that his approach to change is a metaphor and not a literal commitment to the idea that there are spirits within all things is consistent with his naturalistic approach to the problem of the one and the many. Many people immediately think of, well, a screaming weakness with Thales' answer to the problem of the one and the many. Thales, you gotta be kidding. Water can't be the single substance that underlies all things. Well, what about fire? Fire and water are incompatible. They're not going to be in the same place at the same time. Fire destroys water, water destroys fire. So how could you conceivably say that fire can ultimately be understood in terms of water? Well, this is a good point. It's the type of point known as a counterexample. Thales has proposed that all things are understandable in terms of water. When we make an all statement, that does not allow for any exceptions. An all statement, technically in logic, is known as a universal. Universal means covers everything. A counterexample shows that a universal is false. If one asserts a universal statement and a counterexample can be found, then the universal statement cannot be true. So the observation that fire cannot be understood in terms of water is more than just a serious problem for Thales' material monistic claim that water is the ultimate one that underlies the many. It's not just a significant problem, it's a devastating problem. So does this mean that material monism has failed altogether? Well, not exactly. What if one could propose a better version of the single monistic underlying substance of all things? Then perhaps material monism could still be true.